Freshman Kyle Lehman returned to school this week for the first time after he was shot in the foot and endured 3 surgeries.
So he actually had the officer who rescued him, Jeff Heinrich.
Off-duty Coral Springs Police Sergeant Jeff Heinrich happened to be at the school that day working on the ball fields. He ran towards the danger and found Kyle.
Jeff, the police officer, the nicest guy ever. He grabbed me. He's like, okay, we're getting out of here. Because I really thought I was not getting out of this alive because I thought he was coming toward me.
What's going on, guys? Time for another episode of Behind the Uniforms. I just humbled and honored to be with this gentleman out here in Florida. Who are you?
Jeff Heinrich, how are you?
Jeff, how does everybody know your name? Because a lot of people do.
I happened to be on the baseball field when the day that, on February 14th, the day of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting.
It began as an ordinary school day, and it was almost over when gunfire erupted this afternoon. This deadly mass shooting happened in Parkland, Florida, about 20 miles northwest of Fort Lauderdale at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, attended by about 3,000 students.
My son is a baseball player there and a student there. My wife's a teacher there. So I obviously volunteer my time out there and help out get the field ready and stuff for games and practices and things like that. So on that day, I just happened to be out there working on the field right when the shooting started.
Walk me through that day from your perspective as to what happened to you, how you heard about it.
Sure. Basically, I was out watering. We have a fire hose thing that we hook up to the middle of the baseball field that wets down the field. So I was out just watering the field, and the fire alarm went off. I worked at schools for years. I was a school resource officer at Coral Springs High School for 4 years, and didn't think anything of it. Kids were walking out from the school. You could see them walking out towards their areas where they were. And then I heard probably 5 or 6 loud bangs, which at the time, honestly, I thought were fireworks. You know, didn't think anything of it. Really, nobody was reacting to anything. They were just kind of going along. And then probably I'd say about 30 or 40 seconds after that, I heard another round of about 5 or 6. And that's when things started to change. And you could see kids starting to run and understanding what was going on.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
So at that point, basically dropped the hose, started running towards the school where the gunfire was coming from, and immediately encountered one of our security specialists at the school, Elliot Bonner, who's a coach there. He coaches football, baseball, basketball, or not football and baseball, I'm sorry. And he's like, it's code red, which I worked in the schools. That means, you know, it's basically an active shooter. He said that somebody had been shot. I'm not going to say who it was, but one of the individuals that was shot, he saw him shot and was down. So I knew there was an active shooter situation. So I went around the building. There's kind of hard to explain, but there's 2 buildings side by side, 1200 and 1300. So I went around the 1300 building out into the parking lot because 1200 building was where the shots are coming from. When I came out into the parking lot, I immediately encountered a student. He was 15 years old. His name was Kyle Lehman. He had been shot in the right leg. He had a massive gunshot wound to the right leg.
Somehow he managed to run down 3 flights of stairs on that badly wounded ankle and make his way outside.
And that's when I saw Jeff, the police officer, the nicest guy ever.
And I heard a round of probably about another 5 or 6 shots.
Off-duty Coral Springs Police Sergeant Jeff Heinrich happened to be at the school that day working on the ball fields. He ran towards the danger and found Kyle.
He grabbed me. He's like, okay, we're getting out of here. Because I really thought I was not getting out of this alive because I thought he was coming toward me.
Grabbed him up. You know, he was screaming, obviously crying. He wanted, you know, he's asking for help. I said, don't worry, we get it. You know, so we ended up running back out along the football field, back out to the baseball field where we were. I got him inside of our clubhouse there, and we have a first aid kit that we use for football or for baseball and stuff. So wrapped his foot up really good, pressure bandaged, everything. By that time, there were paramedics coming, and I was able to hand him off to the paramedics. We ended up calling getting a hold of his grandmother on the phone because he wanted to get a hold of someone. We got a hold of his grandmother on the phone, and she was having a hard time understanding what was happening because we couldn't get a hold of his parents. And then before I ended up leaving there, I ended up calling my wife. And then after that, I called After that, I called my wife. Thank you. And luckily, I was able to get a hold of her. Luckily for us, when the shooting started, my son was on a bathroom pass, and my wife was in a in the PE area. She's a PE teacher. And they both heard the fire alarm and decided to evacuate. By the grace of God, when they walked out in the hallway, they found each other. And they were able to shelter in place. So they were outside the building, outside of Building 12 in the courtyard when the shots started. So they heard the shots immediately. They took off running. My wife went one way, my son went the other way. But my wife went in to try and open up the gymnasium to try and get kids into the gymnasium. But the gate was locked. So there was a custodian there, said, no, go in this building, this door here. So she went into the door. It was a culinary classroom. And it was her and I think 3 other teachers and about 60, 65 students. And it has happened, my son actually went into that door too. So when I was able to call her and find out what was going on, she said, yeah, we're both safe. I said, just stay bed down. I said, because it's an active shooter, it's real, it's not, this isn't a drill, this is real. And so I hung up with her, called dispatch. I thought I called 911, but I actually called our non-emergency number, believe it or not. It's crazy. But gave them, Kyle had given us a description of the shooter, what kind of weapon Kyle was an avid airsoft gun, guy with airsoft guns and things like that. So he had some familiarization with the type of weaponry and stuff, and he was able to let us know they had an AR-15 and a little bit of a description of what he was, what he was wearing and that type of stuff. As soon as we passed Kyle off in the office, in the clubhouse there, I met up with one of our, now he's our deputy chief, McKeon, and Brad McKeon, and he's one of our SWAT guys. He had an extra vest, he had a SWAT vest and a second weapon. I didn't have my weapon with me. I was, like I said, I was in a pair of t-shirt and a pair of shorts out watering the lawn. So I grabbed his gun and his stuff, and then we just systematically cleared back to where I was and then around to the building. And when we got to Building 12, there was already 2 teams back inside of Building 12. So we stayed on perimeter of the building and then helped get the people outside of the building once we evacuated that building. So and then we remained on scene until we were told the school was clear and went back home, or back to the police department actually.
Was there ever a thought in your head when this all started of just run away? No, never. That's what we train for. I mean, our training on this has been, phenomenal. I can honestly say, and you can talk to any of the guys that were inside that building, and they have told me, nothing can prepare you for what they saw and what they had to go through in that building, no amount of training, nothing. But you still rely on that training. You still rely on what we've been taught. The life-saving techniques that we did with the blood clotting materials and the first aid stuff that we have here. There's no doubt it saved lives inside that building. When you think about, being able to differentiate between work and home, which is obviously so crucial in policing, to be able to have that line, that barrier was broken for you that day. How do you process that?
I don't know, honestly. You continue to work through it. That was probably the hardest thing for me, is I never was able to get away from it. And for my kid. My son heard things and discussed things at home, information that public doesn't have. He's aware of things that happen, things like that, just common discussions that I have with my wife, but he would hear it. So you're never able to separate. Some guys can go home and it's over, but my wife lived through it, my son lived through it, so it's constantly, reminder. And my wife's still, she's seeking counseling and she's still dealing with it herself. And my son had a tough time in the beginning, but he's doing better now. And it's going to be a long process. It's truly something nobody should have to go through ever. And it's affected a lot of people.
The media focuses a lot on the tragedies of that day, and there were many. They focus on failures that day, but there were also stories of lives saved, and there were stories of heroes and people who were willing to throw a vest on over a t-shirt and go in. What do you hope that people take away? What message do you hope people take that they might not be getting from the mainstream media?
I mean, there's a lot of good people there that day. Like I said, there's a lot of people that saved lives. There's a lot of people, and not just Coral Springs, BSO, Sunrise, numerous agencies. I can't even tell you how many agencies were there. Canines, SWATs. I mean, you name it. They all had a part. Obviously, we had some failures, but there was so much positive of life-saving people, the stories of people's lives being saved. You know, that's what I want them to take away. I mean, obviously, don't forget about the people that have passed away. I mean, there's tragedy and you know, I don't know. It's a difficult situation, but there was a lot of good work that happened.
And the program that the department is now implementing to train people on how to stop active bleeds, is that something that you believe saved lives?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean we had tourniquets. We had tourniquets on multiple people, and you know, the blood clotting material, packing wounds, and things like that these people did. That, I mean, the doctors told us over and over again that the stuff that we've done and the surgeons that we've done has changed, you know, saved people's lives. And that's credit to our training unit and the bags that we are able to carry and we keep in our cars that we can throw on and go into those type of situations. And now I believe even at Douglas now they've installed those bleeding control bags, and I think it's almost in every classroom has them now. So and they're doing training with the teachers and things like that. Those are types of things that need to be done because it's going to happen again. I mean, unfortunately, I'd love to say it's not, but you know, it's going to happen again, and we have to do what's best to be able to, you know, mitigate that situation if it does.
Brother, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for the heroism.
No problem.
Guys, thank you all for hitting the share button on this video. It takes you 2 seconds, and these are the stories that aren't being shared like they should be. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for sharing. God bless America.